We talk about facial recognition a lot on this show. I was part of a campaign along with Fight for the Future to get facial recognition banned, and that campaign was very successful. Since then, Oakland, California has banned facial recognition. So has San Francisco. By the way, those are the places where the technology was developed. Isn't it interesting? The cities where this technology is developed, they're saying no thanks. Why are they doing that? Because they know the most about it. You might be thinking, well, Ron, it's just a new technology. Why is that so? Well, because first of all, it's incredibly faulty. It has mismatches about 98% of the time in some cases. Study after study has shown that it doesn't help. It doesn't help anyone catch a bad guy. All it helps with is over-policing our society. The databases have been breached often, and if that gets in the wrong hands, that could be catastrophic. Police have used facial recognition databases for dishonest means, like trying to find information on an ex. All it is doing is over-militarizing our police forces, and it's not making us safer. So we shouldn't have it. Who's the only candidate that has come out in favor of banning facial recognition? Bernie Sanders. During that campaign, I reached out to several different presidential candidates. Most of them didn't get back to me at all. One of them got back and said, we're too busy to even look at this. Bernie Sanders got back and came out in favor of banning facial recognition. Just for the record. And AOC now is coming out against facial recognition, which I'm glad to see. So here's what I'm glad to see this from AOC, and here's what AOC had to say. Let's check this out. Watch part of it because I don't want to get dinged.
We've heard a lot about the risk of harm to everyday people posed by facial recognition. But I think it's important for people to really understand how widespread this is. Ms. Whitaker, you made a very important point just now that this is a potential tool of authoritarian regimes, correct?
Absolutely.
Can you remind us of some of the most common ways that companies collect our facial recognition data?
Here we go.
Absolutely. They scrape it from sites like Flickr. Some use Wikipedia. They collect it through massive networked market reach. So Facebook is a great example of that.
So if you've ever posted a photo of yourself to Facebook, that could be used in a facial recognition database?
Absolutely, by Facebook and potentially others.
Could using a Snapchat or Instagram filter help hone an algorithm for facial recognition?
Absolutely.
Can surveillance camera footage that you don't even know is being taken of you be used for facial recognition?
Yes, and cameras are being designed for that purpose now.
And keep in mind, they did that in London, where they actually had police on the street gathering data for facial recognition. It got nipped in the bud real quick, but they did that in London. We covered this on we covered that on the show when it happened.
And so currently cameras are being designed. People think, I'm going to put on a cute filter and have puppy dog ears and not realize that that data is being collected by a corporation or the state, depending on what country you're in order to track your, to surveil you potentially for the rest of your life. Is that correct?
Yes.
Do you think average consumers are aware of how companies are collecting or storing their facial recognition data?
I do not.
In a previous hearing, we were talking about how facial recognition is oftentimes have the highest error rates for Black and brown Americans.
This is one of the things that we just mentioned, and one of the things that we covered in the ban facial recognition campaign.
And the worst implications of this is that a computer algorithm will tell a Black person that they have likely committed a crime when they are innocent. So let's say if you walk into a technology store, or as this technology spreads, you just walk into a store in the mall, and because the error rates for facial recognition are higher for Black and brown folks, you get misidentified as a criminal. You walk out, and let's say an officer stops you and say, someone has accused you of a crime, or we think that you've been accused of a crime.
Stuff like this has already happened. There have been, for instances, where people have been deported to countries they've never even been to because of faulty facial recognition software that said they were an undocumented person.
No idea that facial recognition may have been responsible for you being mistakenly accused of a crime. Is that correct?
That's correct. And we have evidence that it's often not disclosed.
And so that evidence is often not disclosed, which also compounds on our broken criminal justice system, where people very often don't get entitled to the evidence against them when they're accused of a crime. Is that correct?
Yes, the Willie Lynch case in Florida is case in point.
So what we're seeing here is that these technologies are almost automating injustices, both in our criminal justice system, but also automating biases that compound on the lack of diversity in Silicon Valley as well.
Absolutely. These companies do not reflect the general population, and the choices they make and the business decisions they make are in the interest of a small few.
So, Madam Chairwoman, I'd say this is some real life Black Mirror stuff that we're seeing here. And I think it's really important that everyone really understand what's happening, because this is, as you pointed out, Ms. Whitaker, this is happening secretly as well, correct?
Yes.
All right.
So I have not seen Black Mirror. Thanks for rubbing it in, AOC. No, I think this is great. I'm glad AOC's doing this. She's had some really good takes on this stuff, and I really like the fact that she's doing this. I also like what she's been doing with The Intercept in regards to climate change. I certainly haven't agreed with every single take AOC has had. I've disagreed with her before, but I think overall she's doing a good job, and this is an example of something I'm really glad is going on. And another thing that's happening in regards to facial recognition. So Fight for the Future, the organization that I collaborated with the initial facial recognition campaign, here's something they're doing now. This is going on in college campuses. So here's something they're doing, and you can find them, Fight for the Future, over on Twitter and banfacialrecognition.com. CIIS is not using facial recognition, and we're not making any plans to use this technology in the future. So they're getting college campuses to get on board with the promise to ban facial recognition technology on their campus. And here's, let's go to this website here. We'll plug this in. So this is part of the initial, this is banfacialrecognition.com /campus. So here's what's going on. Ban facial recognition on campus. We all read Orwell's 1984 in high school. Okay, got to stop for a second there. Here's a fun, true story about a different time in my life when I was an adjunct teacher at a university. It was a community college, and I was an adjunct instructor there. I don't use the word professor because I'm technically not a professor. I don't have my PhD, so I'm not a professor. I have a master's, which qualifies me to teach undergrads at the college level, and I have, but I do not have my PhD, so I'm technically not a professor. I know you guys really care. I know that's really important. We were like, Ron, we were going to cancel the show forever if you did not make that distinction. Thank you so much. But in fairness, not a professor. Anyway, was an instructor. And one time I was just given a lesson. I taught public speaking and speech communication. And I go, so, like you've all read Orwell's 1984. I said that to a group of college students, and they all looked at me with blank stares. And I go, who here's read 1984? No one raised their hand. And I'm like, nobody in this class has read 1984. Like, no one had to read that in high school. Blank stares. This was in Nashville, Tennessee, not the highest ranked state for education. And I'm like, you guys are kidding me. Like, none of you have read 1984. Not one student in this class. There were about 30 students in this class. Not one of you have read. Lucy's like, I'm going to go read 1984 right now. I'm going to go reread it. I've read it before, but holy shit. I'm going to go. You going to go? You go read 1984? Is that what you're going to go to? Nope, you're chilling. She's indecisive. And I go, none of you have read 1984. Finally, one student in the class raised his hand. And I was like, all right, so you've read 1984. And he's like, no. And he goes, I just wanted to say, Mr. Placone, you haven't seen all the Fast and Furious movies. That was his rebuttal. I hadn't seen the Fast and Furious movies. And that's on par with reading 1984. And that's when I was like, oh man, we're in trouble. So fight for the future. You're being a little too optimistic about the future. We all read Orwell's 1984 in high school. Unfortunately, that's not the case. Had I been part of this campaign specifically, I would have been like, guys, sorry, but we might need to take that off the website. But some people didn't get the warning. Facial recognition surveillance is spreading. If we don't speak out, soon every campus could be equipped with invasive technology that monitors everything we do, including who students hang out with and what they do outside of class. It's time to ban facial recognition on campus before we have no liberties left. So whether you are student, alumni, professor, parent, administrator, employee, or community member, your voice matters. Fill out the form below. Boom, and here it is. So if you are an academic person, banfacialrecognition.com/campus. If you're just interested in this issue more generally, banfacialrecognition.com. Do it. Fight for the future. Thanks for staying on top of this. And AOC, thanks for being part of this. All right.
Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and make it our own. Get your